The first time they saw it over the Mediterranean, German pilots radioed back confused reports. Twin engines, they said, twin booms extending back like pitchforks, a cockpit nestled in the center like a glass bubble. It looked like something designed by committee, something that shouldn't work, something cobbled together from spare parts and desperate engineering. But then it turned toward them, and everything they thought they knew about American fighters evaporated in the thin air above North Africa. The Lockheed P-38 Lightning wasn't supposed to exist, not in the form it took, not with the performance it delivered, not with the fear it would eventually inspire. When Lockheed's design team sat down in 1937, they were chasing a specification that seemed impossible. The Army Air Corps wanted a high-altitude interceptor that could climb to 20,000 feet in 6 minutes. They wanted speed above 400 miles per hour. They wanted heavy armament. They wanted range that could take the fight deep into enemy territory. They wanted everything. And somehow Lockheed gave it to them. The result was an aircraft that looked like nothing else in the sky. Twin Allison V1710 engines mounted on extended booms, counter-rotating propellers to eliminate torque, a central nacelle housing the pilot, the weapons, and enough ammunition to turn any target into scrap metal. It was unconventional. It was radical. It was exactly what the Luftwaffe would learn to fear, but not immediately. When the P-38 first entered combat in North Africa in late 1942, German pilots were curious more than concerned. The Bf-109 had ruled European skies for years. The FW-190 was proving itself a masterpiece of engineering. American fighters had shown up before the P-40, the P-39, and while competent, they weren't changing the equation. The Lightning looked different, sure, but different didn't mean dangerous. That assumption lasted exactly one engagement. The P-38 climbed, not the steady, grinding climb of other fighters, not the labor descent that left pilots gasping in thin air. It climbed like it was being pulled upward by invisible cables, like gravity had decided to take the day off, like the laws of physics were optional suggestions rather than hard limits. At altitude, real altitude, the kind that made other aircraft wheeze and struggle, the Lightning came alive. Twin turbochargers fed those Allison engines a steady diet of compressed air. While Bf-109s fought to maintain power above 25,000 feet, the P-38 was just getting started. It could cruise at 30,000 feet. It could fight at 35,000 feet. It could reach altitudes where German pilots had never expected to defend. And from up there, it owned every cubic meter of sky below. German pilots started reporting something strange. A sound, a distinctive howl that cut through the engine noise and radio chatter. Two Allison engines running in perfect synchronization, their exhaust notes combining into something that didn't sound mechanical. It sounded alive. It sounded predatory. It sounded like nothing else in the war. They called it the Lightning Scream, and they learned to fear it. Because that sound meant the P-38 had spotted them. And once the Lightning committed to an attack, physics became the enemy's worst nightmare. Most fighters of the era had a problem. In a dive, a real dive, pushing past terminal velocity, chasing an enemy toward the ground, the controls would stiffen. Compressibility effects would lock the stick. The aircraft would shake and buffet and threaten to tear itself apart. Pilots had to pull out early. They had to give up the pursuit. They had to watch their target escape while their own aircraft fought against them. The P-38 didn't have that problem. Lockheed's engineers had stumbled onto something remarkable. The twin boom design, the central nacelle, the way the aircraft distributed its mass, all of it combined to create a fighter that could dive faster and longer than anything else in the sky. German pilots would brake hard, pushing their aircraft into steep dives, confident that no Allied fighter could follow. And then they'd hear it, that scream, getting louder, getting closer, the Lightning staying with them, matching their dive, closing the distance with mechanical precision. And there was nothing they could do about it. The Bf-109 topped out around 450 miles per hour in a dive before things got dangerous. The FW-190 could push a bit further. The P-38 could exceed 500 miles per hour and still respond to control inputs, still track its target, still line up the shot. It was like being chased by something that didn't understand the concept of limits. And when it caught you and it would catch you, you faced something else entirely. 4.50 caliber machine guns, 120 cannon, all mounted in the nose, all firing along the same axis. No convergence issues, no spread pattern. No hoping the bullets would meet somewhere in front of the aircraft. Point the nose at the target, pull the trigger, watch the target disintegrate. German pilots who survived encounters with the P-38 reported the same thing. The concentration of fire was devastating. A 1-second burst could saw the wing off a Bf-109. A 2-second burst could turn an FW-190 into a fireball. And the Lightning carried enough ammunition to deliver multiple bursts. It wasn't a fighter, it was a flying gun platform, and it had the performance to put that platform exactly where it needed to be. The nickname emerged from multiple sources, but it stuck because it was perfect. Der Gabelschwanz-Teufel, the fork-tailed devil. Some say it came from German pilots in North Africa. Some say it originated over Italy. Some say Lockheed's marketing department encouraged the story. None of that mattered. What mattered was that German pilots recognized the P-38 instantly. Those twin booms, that distinctive silhouette, that sound. And when they saw it, they knew the fight had just become exponentially more difficult. The Lightning wasn't just another fighter. It was a problem that required solutions the Luftwaffe didn't have. You couldn't outclimb it. You couldn't outdive it. You couldn't outrun it in level flight. You couldn't match its range. You couldn't survive its firepower. So what could you do? German pilots developed tactics. Stay low, where the P-38 size and weight became disadvantages. Engage in tight, turning dogfights where the Lightning's wide turning radius worked against it. Attack from below where the American pilots had limited visibility. Use clouds for cover. Use terrain for concealment. Hope the Lightning pilot made a mistake, because if he didn't, you were already dead. But those tactics only worked if you could dictate the terms of engagement, and increasingly you couldn't. Because the P-38 wasn't just hunting fighters, it was escorting bombers, deep into Germany, farther than any Allied fighter had gone before. The Bf-109 had range limitations. The FW-190 had range limitations. Every German fighter was designed for defensive operations, for short flights from base to intercept point and back. The P-38 could fly from England to Berlin and back. It could escort bombers to targets the Luftwaffe thought were safe. It could loiter over the battlefield, waiting for German fighters to appear. And when they appeared, the Lightning was already at altitude, already positioned, already holding every advantage. German pilots found themselves fighting on American terms, and losing. By 1944, the situation was desperate. The Luftwaffe was hemorrhaging experienced pilots. Fuel shortages meant training flights were cut to minimums. New pilots arrived at frontline units with barely enough hours to keep the aircraft in the air, let alone fight in it. And every time they went up, they faced aircraft like the P-38, flown by pilots who had hundreds of hours of training, supported by logistics that ensured every aircraft was maintained and fueled, protected by tactics that had been refined through years of combat. It wasn't a fair fight. It was a slaughter. Richard Bong flew the P-38, 40 confirmed kills. America's top ace, a name German pilots knew, a reputation that preceded him into every engagement. Thomas Maguire flew the P-38, 38 confirmed kills, America's second highest ace. Another name that meant death was circling overhead. Both men flew in the Pacific hunting Japanese aircraft, but German pilots heard the stories. They knew what the Lightning could do in the hands of an expert. They knew that somewhere over Germany there were American pilots just as skilled, just as deadly, just as determined. And they knew that every time they took off they might encounter one. The psychological impact was real. Seeing those twin booms, hearing that scream, knowing what was coming, it affected decision-making. It affected morale. It affected the willingness to engage. Some German pilots reported feeling relief when they encountered P-47 Thunderbolts or P-51 Mustangs instead of P-38, not because those aircraft were less dangerous, but because they were known quantities. They fought like normal fighters. The Lightning fought like something else entirely. There were weaknesses, of course. The P-38 struggled in cold weather. The Allison engines had intercooler problems that caused failures in European conditions. Early models had issues with engine fires and turbocharger malfunctions. The cockpit heating was inadequate at high altitude. Pilots reported frostbite on long missions. The aircraft was complex to maintain. It required specialized training. It was expensive to produce. But none of that mattered to the German pilot trying to defend his homeland. All he saw was the silhouette. All he heard was the scream. All he knew was that his chances of survival had just dropped dramatically. The fork-tailed devil wasn't invincible. German pilots shot them down. Flak brought them down. Mechanical failures claimed them, but the ratio was ugly. For every P-38 lost, multiple German aircraft fell from the sky. And Germany couldn't afford that math, not in 1944, not with the Eastern Front consuming resources, not with fuel becoming scarce, not with experienced pilots becoming irreplaceable. The P-38 represented something the Luftwaffe couldn't counter: American industrial capacity, American training programs, American logistics. American determination to win through overwhelming force. Every Lightning that appeared over Germany was a reminder that the war was lost, that no amount of skill or courage could overcome the simple reality of numbers and resources, that the fork-tailed devils would keep coming until there was nothing left to defend. The hatred was earned, not through propaganda, not through exaggeration, through cold, hard experience. The P-38 Lightning climbed higher than German fighters could effectively operate. It dove faster than they could follow. It hit harder than they could withstand. It ranged farther than they could match. And it did all of this while looking like nothing else in the sky, sounding like a banshee, and carrying enough firepower to destroy anything it caught. German pilots didn't hate it because it was strange. They hated it because every time they saw those twin booms, they knew someone wasn't coming home, and increasingly, that someone was them. The fork-tailed devil earned its name in the skies over Europe and the Pacific. It earned it through performance that redefined what a fighter could do. It earned it through victories that mounted into legends. It earned it through the fear it inspired in the pilots who faced it. And by the time the war ended, that name had become synonymous with American air power, with technological superiority, with the kind of aircraft that changes the calculus of combat. The Luftwaffe hated the P-38 Lightning. And they had every reason to.